Good evening. I bring you greetings on this Maundy Thursday. I hope that you are enjoying the love feast with your family in your home. I do want to take a couple of minutes this evening and share with you a couple of passages of Scripture and invite you to reflect on these passages of Scripture. The Maundy Thursday is a celebration of the Last Supper that Jesus shared with his disciples, and there were really two parts of that. First of all, there was the meal that they shared together. And then after that meal, Jesus and three of the disciples went out into the garden where Jesus prayed and invited his disciples to pray with him. Here at Tucker First Methodist, one of the most beautiful scenes that we have remembers that. I am in the narthex leading into the chapel, the entrance coming in off of La Vista Road. And many of you will be familiar with the stained glass window over the doors coming in that is a picture of Jesus out in the garden in this time of prayer. And as we think about that scene, I want to lift up a couple of passages of Scripture for you to hear and reflect on this evening. First of all, in Luke chapter 22, beginning with verse 31, Jesus is still sharing the meal with the disciples. And at that meal, Jesus said these words, "Simon, look, Satan has asserted the right to sift all of you like wheat. However, I have prayed for you that your faith won't fail." I think that's comforting words to think that Jesus is praying for us that we will not fail. The second passage of Scripture comes a little bit later in Luke 22. This is when Jesus and some of the disciples have left the upper room where they were sharing the meal. They went out into the garden where Jesus prayed and invited the disciples to pray with him. You may remember that story that while Jesus was praying, the disciples all went to sleep. Again, as we look at our stained glass window, if you look in the background, you'll see the disciples there, and their eyes are closed in the stained glass. They are asleep. But at that moment, Jesus went back to the disciples and invited them to pray that they wouldn't enter into temptation. When Jesus went back and found the disciples asleep, what we read is that they were overcome with grief. To be overcome with grief means that there is great sadness in our lives. And I wonder what it would be like for us this evening if we knew that Jesus was praying for us the way that he said that he was praying for Peter and for his other disciples. I wonder what it would be like for us to know that Jesus was praying for us when we face sadness and grief in our lives. Can you picture that? Can you imagine Jesus praying for you in this moment? If you're having trouble picturing that, maybe we can help you with a little bit of an image, a graphic that might help you to get that picture of Jesus praying for you with his hand reached out over your head, praying for you with whatever it is that is bringing sadness and grief into your life. Does this setting help us to visualize a little bit better what it would be like to know that Jesus is praying for us with his hand stretched out over our heads, lifting us up in prayer the way that he promised that he would pray for his followers? If you knew that Jesus was praying for you this evening, what is the one thing that you would like to ask Jesus to be in prayer for you in your life on this evening? What is the one thing that might be bringing sadness or grief into your life the way that the disciples were so overcome with grief and sadness that they went to sleep? This evening, I'd like to invite you as a family to think about and to share with one another the one thing that you would like to ask Jesus to be in prayer for you in your life this evening. And as we think about Jesus praying for us, I also want to remind us that Jesus has given us the authority to pray for one another in his name, in his power, with his authority. And so this evening, with your family sharing a love feast together, As you share the thing in your life that is bringing sadness and grief into your life, I'd like to invite you to assume the posture that Jesus has in the stained glass window, with hands reached out toward the head of a member of your family, to lift that person up in prayer and to pray for them this evening in the power and the authority that Jesus has given to us. His promise is that He is praying for us. His promise gives us the power and the authority to pray for one another in His name. Take a moment, share with each other the one thing that you would like for Jesus to pray for you in your life, and then take a moment and lift up those things as a family together. And God bless you as you continue this love feast together.